Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about power, safety, and the voice. This is a podcast episode that was inspired by some conversations that I had with a friend. So I'll start off with saying a lot of people who I've known for 15 years plus have been commenting on how my voice has changed. It's deeper now, often slower and more deliberate. And it's really funny, because I was relaying the story of when I was in my early 20s. I'm a ex-vocalist. I used to perform musical theatre, and I was in many bands. And a voice coach who'd worked with Andrew Lloyd Webber had actually told me that my natural range was much, much deeper. And I remember scoffing at her. I was like, she doesn't know me. She's only here for a weekend. I'd always been put in mezzo-soprano in the choir, and I was known for having a very high, bright voice. And I believed that was my natural voice. But it wasn't. I grew to discover it was the sound of someone performing safety. So when you've spent a lifetime navigating other people's comfort, especially if you've experienced trauma like I have, or spent years fawning as an undiagnosed autistic ADHDer, your voice adapts. It literally shifts pitch to keep you safe. Now, this was not a conscious decision. It was what was modeled around me, and I found that that is what I was rewarded for. And as I began to unmask as an autistic, I found I didn't have throat issues anymore. And I wish I had known this back when I was singing, because I was not a smoker, so it would have helped me a lot. And I didn't really realize what was going on at the time. I'd worked with some great vocal coaches who really did try and nurture that out of me. But I would say that most of my somatic work I learned through acting and through vocalizing. And now I've found I've come back to that quite a bit. So a lot of psychological exercises and embedding those exercises with the body. For example, picturing your feet. So right now I'm picturing my feet. I'm in that space. Your voice naturally gets lower and gets deeper. So there's lots of exercises like that. So it's all useful. So that's the context. And a high, light voice communicates approachability. It says, I'm nice, I'm harmless, you can trust me. It's the equivalent of smiling constantly. And for years that was me, always smiling, always speaking in a slightly higher tone than felt natural. I wasn't conscious of it. And it's just when I look back at old footage or speak with people, and it's interesting too, because there were times where I was really not happy. But I was smiling more. And now I smile much less, sorry. And sometimes people say to me, oh, are you okay? And I just have a flat affect sometimes. And my older sister used to give me a lot of shit about that too. So for years, that was me, and it wasn't fake. It was completely subconscious, and it was just survival mechanism. And that's how the nervous system works. I talk a lot about the polyvagal system. And when we feel unsafe, the vagus nerve tightens the larynx. and it shortens the breath, and pitch rises. So then we subconsciously modulate our tone to signal, I'm safe to you, so please be safe to me. And that's nothing to do with personality. That is just physiology. And then the other added thing that was occurring was I've always experienced synesthesia. So it's changed in how I experience it. I used to experience certain images, shapes, and even letters associated with sound and textures. I used to experience it when I was younger more with taste. But I suppose now as I've gotten older, it changed, and that could have been my mapping of the senses broadened and expanded. And it's colors now, and I see certain colors associated with people's voices, and it's almost like a clairsentience when I can feel someone's emotions. But I'm not saying I'm psychic. I can hear what is going on physiologically for someone through their voice and the colors that are presented to me. And I could never do it for myself, even with recordings, but I could do it for other people. And then I found a framework that worked for me, which I won't go into in this episode. And then I began analyzing my own voice and recording my voice when I was very sad, just in my phone, when I was very sad, when I was upset, when I was holding disappointment back. And then also when I was ecstatic, just all the different ranges of emotions. And then I'd listen back and analyze my own voice. And then I also went back to my vocal training and acting and further analyzed and began practicing. And that was an interesting thing to do, because then I found when I felt grounded, of course, my physiology changed and then my voice changed. The other thing that occurred was I used to listen to music 24/7, and I still love music, don't get me wrong. However, I used to use it as a numbing agent to suppress my emotions. And now I feel them more and integrate them. And I find that I'm not needing music as much. Now I'll use music to go deep, like even deeper into an emotion, very intentionally, or to let off steam and to stim and go to a drum and bass gig and dance my ass off. So the physiology changes, and it's similar to, let me think of a quick example. So Botox comes to mind. So one of the reasons why I am afraid of plastic surgery and certain beauty procedures like Botox is that the inability to feel the emotions in your face actually restricts you from feeling that emotion. There's actually quite a few studies on this. So I'd rather feel my emotions and release them. So it matters a lot what you're feeling in the body. So silence has become fantastic. These days I listen to music, but it's not on 24/7. I used to have to listen to it when I was sleeping. And emotions are just moving through. And I find that presence and nature have really replaced constant stimulation. And as I've stopped performing that high, bright tone, I move through a lot more. So silence can be a mirror. It can show you where you're still masking, where you're still code switching, where you're still performing. So when your body finally trusts you, knows that you're safe, knows that you can deal with whatever comes your way, your voice will naturally drop. It's not something you force. You can exercise it. And I say, you know, you're not sitting there going, oh, I'm going to speak in a deep voice. And that's why people notice it before you do. They can hear the authority in it, the groundedness. And the truth is your body can't fake a grounded tone. And that's why with vocal exercises, it's about getting the body aligned. So it's more about learning vocal anatomy, about your instrument, about the body. And your diaphragm either releases or it doesn't. And your breath either reaches your belly or it doesn't. And that's why voice work and trauma work are often the same thing in disguise. And I was also speaking with a friend and another vocalist friend, an old friend of mine, and I was talking about watching an interview with Angelina Jolie. It was fairly recently. And she talked about how she has a naturally high voice, but when she was doing this recent movie, they noticed that her voice was actually, very high, but she had projected a deeper one because it made her feel more in control. So I resonated with that because she was protecting herself, you know, being in Hollywood, being super famous, except I had done the reverse. I had a naturally low voice, but I projected it higher to seem, you know, more socially acceptable, softer, to fit in more. And both are adaptations. Both are creating a social camouflage that says, I'm safe. Don't punish me for being powerful or soft or whatever. So it's about integrating that. And I had a really good example from my supervisor from university. And we were talking about voices and writing because they really actually helped me refine my writing voice. And when we were talking about it, and talking about pauses and not going off on tangents, I said, well, actually, that's how, as bizarre, my dominatrix self speaks. She's slow, she's controlled, she's grounded, and that's not fake. Actually, it is my confident, calm captain of the ship, natural state. And my supervisor said, that's like drag, like in reference RuPaul, like you don't become drag becomes you. So it was always you. So yeah, it's that meaning. You don't put on drag reveals who you are. And the same with BDSM. It's not covering up who I am, it's amplifying. So that more deliberate voice isn't a character. It's the part of me that no longer apologizes for existing. And let me tell you, you get punished for it a lot more. It's easier for a man to have that kind of voice, but we are socially conditioned to have this kind of voice. Even when I don't say, I've noticed on my unmasking journey, I don't say thank you as much, and I don't over apologize, and I don't explain. Often I just state, I declare what I'm going to do, and I don't over justify or overshare like I used to. And it's amazing to me how just because I'm a female and I present a certain way, that is seen as negative. So the reasoning why that happened is pretty obvious, but just in case this is something new to you. It's interesting to think about. And you can go down that rabbit hole of sociology and the voice. And I've noticed contrast, and it's really good now. I notice when I slip into it by default and subconsciously. So it's, for me, it comes up in high stakes social settings. So when I go to my kids' school, my voice shoots right up. The pitch climbs. I start over smiling. Every cell in my body is basically screaming, please, let's just survive this. And that's my fawn reflex coming in. I'm giving you this behind the scenes in hope that it helps you. You can't override these things with willpower. You have to retrain your body to feel safe while holding authority. So here's what I do now. So these are my action steps. Before I walk into the school, like walk through the school gates, I exhale twice, as long as I inhale. In for 4, out for 8. And a long exhale tells the body, we're not under threat. We are not under threat. And sometimes I might hum a low, and then I feel it until I feel it vibrating in my chest and my sternum. See, that vibration is my anchor, and that is my natural voice. So I imagine my weight dropping. This is vocal coaching. Feet grounded, my knees are unlocked, and I whisper, down, down, down. However you want to whisper. And that is a command to my nervous system. So drop out of the throat, what we would call head voice, back into the body. So when I speak to the principal or a teacher, I pause before sentences. I give myself time and I slow it down on purpose. I exhale before I answer, and I keep my awareness in my feet, and that stops the voice from climbing up into the throat. And if and when I feel that old pitch creeping back, I lower my chin slightly, breathe out, and speak on the exhale. So I think it's Evie Pomporis, the ex-FBI Greek agent. She's so stunning and amazing. She speaks on the exhale. Instantly, your tone deepens. So it's not about dominance, though it can be, but it's about physiological authority. And you can't fake that. You just ground yourself in the body first. And then, kind of like an aftercare, I'm doing it now after I leave, I roll my shoulders back, hum in my chest, and say my name in my normal voice. That's me, I'm back. And that's how I can reclaim my baseline. And that's a very simple ritual. There's many more, but that's the most simplest ritual. And it's powerful. And it teaches your body that you can move through tension without having to shape shift to survive. So I have been behind the scenes actually with NeuroKink Academy, and I've been putting it all on a platform that is going to be more affordable, a different way of doing things, and more community based. And we'll be having these kinds of conversations because these are the kinds of things which came up not only in the interviews but in the first cohort. So things about extending capacity and somatic work. These are the soft skills which you can get many technical skills elsewhere and from people who are far more experienced than I and in the format that you choose, whether that's text or video or attending a face-to-face class. Neuroking Academy is more about neuroscience, it's more about somatics, and it's less about technique like Kink 101. And so I'm excited to be able to share that with you. And this is a sort of teaser to that. So, going back to the psychology of pitch, what I was talking about. So research, there's a lot of research on this, and it's quite fascinating. So studies on vagal tone show that when the parasympathetic system is engaged, when we're calm, when we're grounded, our voice automatically drops in pitch and it slows in tempo. And the other way, when the sympathetic system fires, so you've got fight, flight, or fawn, the larynx lifts, breath shortens, and pitch rises. So sociolinguistic research also shows, like I was saying, women and AFAB people are socially conditioned to use higher voices in professional or high stakes settings. It can signal youthfulness, warmth, compliance, the qualities society rewards. And I can tell you, I have been punished, even recently in workplaces, for not putting on a certain voice like that, what gets called a pleasant voice. Often just means a voice that doesn't threaten authority. So it's about reclaiming your natural register. Voice work isn't about sounding better. It can be, and a lot of people do vocal training for leadership and acting. Voice lessons are very important for all kinds of performance. But for me, it is about sounding true. So it's about reclaiming the tone your body had before you started editing yourself for approval. And that doesn't always sound nice. It sounds real. When your voice aligns with your nervous system, you stop broadcasting fear, you stop apologizing with sonics. And if you want to experiment with this, you can try this short ritual before a high stakes conversation. So I have a practical reset. So like what I was saying, exhale longer than you inhale. You've got to calm the body first. There's no way you can fake it. And I know that sounds hard, and it is. But it's good to practice it. Chewing gum actually has been proven to calm nerves. So you can hum in your chest, and that's where your real voice lives. And you can say aloud, I have time. I choose my rhythm. I often have a quote, like a mantra in my phone, just to remind myself, and it's take your time. Because often I get really excited, I want to share my thoughts, and then often I can overshare. I get it. But when I remind myself, take my time, that helps regulate and get me to that baseline. And when you're doing this, practicing for this high stakes conversation, speak one real line you'll actually say in your meeting or presentation. And keep it slow, low, and unforced. And then afterwards, hum again, and say your name, anchor your baseline. So that's a loop. It takes under 2 minutes. So some reflection prompts, and these are things that I've been exploring for myself and gotten my kids to answer and friends to answer, people who are close to me. And it's very interesting how much it varies across the board. So one of those questions, this is for voice, when does your voice rise and what are you protecting when it does? When do you feel most at home in your own tone? Who do you soften your voice for? And what would happen if you did not? What does your real voice sound like when no one needs anything from you? That's a really great one. This one was an interesting one because I noticed that when I wanted something from someone, particularly males, it would rise, and I noticed it with other friends of mine as well. And it got to the point where I noticed it with women in particular, whereby I knew they were going to ask me for something, whether it be a favor or a big thing, you know. So ask yourself those reflection prompts. And your voice is a living record of your safety. Every tone, every octave tells a story of what you once needed to survive. So it's integration when you start sounding like yourself again. And it's a lot of exploration. So you're not becoming someone new. It's about peeling back those layers. That's pretty interesting. We are in the year of the snake, shedding the skin. So you're just finally sounding like the person you always were. I hope this helps someone, and bye for now.